Welcome back to the programme. Today we are diving into a book that has been quietly making waves in cultural circles, largely because it does something so radically different with a subject we usually associate with high decibel noise. We're talking about Prince William in Conversation with Catherine by Fergus O'Connell.
And I have to say, I am absolutely captivated by it. I think quietly making waves is the perfect way to put it. In a media landscape where every royal book feels like a grenade being thrown into a room, this one feels more like a candle being lit in a very private, very old study. It's an incredibly unique piece of work.
It really is. And I think we have to start with why it feels so timely. You'd think we'd have reached royal saturation point by now, right? Between the documentaries, the memoirs, and the endless tabloid speculation, you'd assume there was nothing left to say. But O'Connell argues in his author intent that the conversation has become so polarised, it's either uncritical reverence or aggressive dismantling.
Exactly. And what's missing from that binary is psychological curiosity. We're so busy arguing about whether the institution should exist that we forget to wonder what it actually feels like to be the human being inside it. This book feels timely because it offers us a third way, a chance for reflection rather than outrage. It feels like the book we needed to lower the temperature of the cultural conversation.
It's a bold move though, because it's not a biography, it's not a tell-all, it's a fictionalised private dialogue. It's essentially an imagined long-form conversation between William and Catherine when the cameras are gone and the constitutional roles are momentarily suspended.
And that's what makes it so different from the traditional royal biography. Most of those books are looking backwards. They are obsessing over dates, events, and who said what at a dinner party 10 years ago. O'Connell isn't interested in documenting the past. He's looking inward at the psychology of these figures. He's treating them as thinking adults navigating a system rather than just caricatures on a balcony.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because as an inquisitive reader, I did have to pause at the fictionalised aspect. It's a sustained conversation, a confidential exchange as the source material calls it, but there's an ethical question there, isn't there? Is it okay to put words into the mouths of living public figures? Host B, you loved this book, but did you ever feel like the line between fiction and perceived truth was getting too blurry?
I think that's a fair question, but O'Connell is so transparent about it. He's operating in a very old literary tradition of using imagined dialogue as a tool to examine larger themes. For me, the emotional truth mattered more than the literal speculation. If you approach it as a psychological exercise rather than reportage, it's incredibly revealing. It's not trying to reveal secrets. It's trying to explore the human weight behind the ceremonial composure.
Right, it's about constructed intimacy. And I suppose public figures who represent an institution are, in a sense, legitimate subjects for this kind of reflective fiction. But I wonder if some readers might mistake this for insider access.
They might, but the book is so measured and intelligent that I think it respects the reader's ability to tell the difference. It doesn't give you the spectacle or the scandal that a tabloid narrative would. Instead, it gives you strategic thinking and emotional discipline. It's a drama of restraint, and that's far more interesting to me than another rehash of a family dispute.
That leads us nicely into one of the core themes, leadership under inherited constraint. This is where the book really shines for me. It asks, what does it mean to inherit power rather than seek it. In our modern world, we're obsessed with disruptors and people who fight their way to the top. But here are two people who were born into, or married into, a position where their primary job is to be the symbol.
Yes, the emotional architecture of public duty. I found that fascinating. The book explores the emotional discipline required for permanent public visibility. You're always on, even when you're off. There's this sense that their leadership is shaped by constraint rather than total freedom. They are navigating an institution that predates them by centuries.
I noticed that too. Jessica, can I ask you, do you think the book is perhaps a bit too sympathetic to that burden? I mean, I can see how an inquisitive reader might ask, does humanising them this much soften the institutional realities? Does it make us forget the power they actually hold because we're so focused on their internal struggle?
I actually think a psychologically balanced portrayal is more subversive than just being overtly critical. By showing the quiet cost of stability, it forces us to look at the human cost of the machine. It's not advocating for the monarchy, but it's asking us to consider if emotional control is a source of strength or a hidden burden. I don't think that's being too sympathetic. I think it's being intellectually refreshing.
It certainly shifts the focus away from should they exist to how do they survive the existence. There's a wonderful moment in the text that touches on the burden of comparison, not just with their own parents, but with the entire history of the role. It makes you realise that their lives are a constant act of strategic restraint.
And that's where we see the marriage coming into play. This isn't just a solo meditation, it's a partnership. The book imagines how they interpret things like loyalty, reform, and legacy together. It's a look at marriage inside an institution.
That partnership aspect is key. In the book, Catherine isn't just a supporting character, she's portrayed as someone consciously shaping her own role. It's not a passive life, it's a highly intentional one. I found myself really curious about how they balance their personal identity with their constitutional duty. How much of their public life is a performance they've agreed upon?
Exactly. It creates this sense of intimacy without voyeurism. You're not peeking through a keyhole to see something tawdry. You're overhearing a confidential exchange about the future of a country. They're discussing things like inheritance versus self-determination. It's incredibly sophisticated.
I suppose my inquisitive side still wonders, can inherited power ever truly feel authentic? If you're born into a role, can you ever really be yourself? The book seems to suggest that their authenticity comes from how they adapt the tradition rather than trying to escape it.
That brings us to the future of the institution itself. The book implicitly treats the monarchy as something that can evolve. It asks the big question, can an ancient institution survive by quiet evolution? And what does that evolution cost the people at the centre of it?
It's a gamble, isn't it? The author suggests that the future depends less on spectacle and more on strategic restraint. But I wonder, in an age of social media and instant gratification, is quiet reform actually realistic? Can a hereditary leadership really coexist with modern democratic expectations?
Those are exactly the debates the book wants to spark. It doesn't claim to have the answers, and it doesn't take a political position. But it frames the monarchy as a continuing institution that is trying to find a balance between reform and stability. It's a much more interesting conversation than just abolish it or keep it exactly the same.
I agree. It moves the needle away from the usual tabloid narratives of personal controversy and interpersonal disputes. It's about institutional continuity. It makes you think about what kind of monarch William wants to become, rather than just what the headlines say he is.
So, looking at the big picture, who is this book for? I'd say it's for anyone who is fascinated by power that must appear calm at all times. If you enjoy reflective, dialogue-driven storytelling, and you're tired of the hostile versus reverential extremes of royal coverage, this is your book.
I think that's right. Even if you're someone like me who starts with a bit of skepticism about the ethics of fictionalizing living people, the psychological depth here is hard to ignore. It forces you to move beyond simple judgment and toward curiosity. It's an intellectually honest attempt to humanize figures who are usually buried under layers of myth.
It's a confidential exchange that actually respects the reader's intelligence. You finish it feeling like you've overheard something thoughtful, not something scandalous. In our current culture, that feels like a minor miracle.
Well, I think we can both agree that Fergus O'Connell has achieved something quite remarkable here. Whether you are a monarchist, a republican, or somewhere in the middle, Prince William, in Conversation with Catherine, is a compelling study of leadership under constraint and the quiet cost of duty.
It really is. It's a book about reflection over outrage, and I can't think of anything we need more right now.
A great place to leave it. Thank you for the conversation, Jessica. And to our listeners, if you're looking for a royal book that actually makes you think, this is the one to pick up.
Absolutely. See you next time.